Welcome to the Cloak and Dagger podcast. On this podcast, we'll be talking about freeform show Cloak and Dagger. Here are your hosts, Kat and Butch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cloak and Dagger podcast. My name is Kat, and I am here, as always, with my amazing co-host, Butch.
We're done, everyone. I am just so happy that they stuck the landing. I think we had like a very good, very satisfying finish to the season, and yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I can't believe we've made it through 10 episodes. I can't believe it. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been 10 episodes of the show, and I'm waiting. You know, we watch so many series where you get like 20, 22 episodes a season, and just having 10, I feel like we got maybe a little cheated, but maybe it was how it was supposed to be. At least we're getting a season 2. We know we have that to look forward to.
Yes, in like 4 months, right?
Yes, so we did find out at the end of this episode that season 2 will be airing in spring 2019, which is awesome. I was thinking that we wouldn't get it till at least summer of next year, but they did tease when they announced the season 2 renewal at Comic-Con that it was going to come back sooner than we think. So spring 2019, I think, is a good compromise for having the second season. So we don't have to wait too long. But we'll talk about that towards the end. Overall thoughts on our final episode?
For me, what I feel like is that like episodes 1 to 9, they kind of perfectly mesh together, if that makes sense. Like the way they set up episode 9 was that it had so many callbacks and symmetries and reflections on earlier episodes. And so I think all the term like literary merit maybe was in that episode. And then here we just go big and it's cinematic and we get a satisfying finale. Like what I'm trying to say is like it kind of stood apart in a way. Like the tone is a little bit different compared to the rest of the season.
I agree.
What about you?
Yeah. And maybe my opinion will change after we talk about this a little more, but this was not one of my favorite episodes. It was good, but it was not one of my favorite. When we do our ranking of episodes for our hiatus episodes, I'll have to rethink this. I'm definitely going to have to rewatch it. And I think that was one of the things, because so many things did happen during this episode, and I was trying to take my notes and watch it at the same time. And I really need to sit down and rewatch it again without any distractions to do it justice, because so many things did happen. I might have missed some nuances. So maybe you'll be able to convince me that this is one of my favorite episodes as we talk about it today.
Maybe I want a new co-host. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So this episode was called Colony Collapse. And we're opening with Auntie, and she's explaining the past divine pairings, and this is something we're going to see come up through each segment of the show. So this was cool. I like to see the past divine pairings. So the very first divine pairing was 2 kids, basically, so a little boy and a little girl, and she was explaining the most important thing, that one of the divine pairings has to bear the weight of basically the saving aspect. So literally one of the kids had a mark on their arm. So then immediately I'm like looking at Ty and Tandy through the episode going, oh my God, who has a mark on their arm? Who's wearing an armband? Like, what is going on here? Right. But, you see this image of this little girl taking a basket of rocks on her head and basically drowning herself in the river. And that was kind of like, that was kind of dark. Like, I don't know how they decided that was how that was going to fix everything, but they explained that fixed everything. It renewed the land, and everything was good after that. Like, they basically saved the village because the girl made that sacrifice.
Right. It's one of those things where I just said this episode's a little bit different in tone to the rest of the series, but just so you don't forget you're watching Cloak and Dagger, let's break your hearts with a little child suicide.
Right, let's
to start
throw
with.
that in there. And so that was the first divine pairing.
Yeah.
And we'll get to my thought here as we get more into the episode, but I do have a question for you, and I'll bring that up later. We'll just leave it at that. So then we see that, so that's Auntie's explanation. So you can tell, based on the style of the show, that we're going to get the history of each one of the pairings as we go through time.
Yes.
So then we go back to Tandy, and we're back at that pivotal moment with the water girl, and she has Melissa. Okay, this did not pan out the way I thought it was going to pan out. But this scene was cool. So Tandy's like trying to talk to the water girl and telling her, Peter Scarborough didn't really tell you everything I could do and all this, and she's getting closer and closer, and I was kind of laughing in my head as I was watching this scene because I was thinking about our conversation, how we were trying to decide if she was a professional or
professional. Yeah.
And I'm like, clearly this woman is an amateur hitman because she would not have let Tandy get so close.
Yeah.
So then, Tandy's getting close to her, and Tandy's going to try to, like, either use her powers or, like, take the gun in some way. And then all of a sudden, Melissa comes out of left field and stabs her with the knife that she grabs. Were you did you expect that? Like, that was really cool.
Absolutely not. And they gave us, in a lot of ways, they gave us something better than what we were thinking. Because I'm sure everyone was thinking, like, Tandy would whip out the knives and throw something towards Water Girl. But yeah, right, Melissa with the badass moment.
I mean, that was pretty amazing. So, Melissa stabs her, and then Tandy starts using her daggers on her and cuts her. But they don't kill her. She runs out the front doors. I'm like, okay, well, she's definitely not a professional assassin because that's not the way that would have went. But then Tandy basically tells her mom, like, you need to go somewhere and be safe. And, Melissa's like, what is going on here? And she's trying to make sense of things. And they have this little conversation of, like, Tandy basically saying that she has to go save the world. And Melissa saying, why does it have to be you? And Tandy says something along the lines of, like, why not? Like, well, that's a good reason.
Yeah, she's turning into a hero. It's so obvious every week with Ty and with Tandy. Maybe not, especially with last week, where a lot of people did not like Tandy Bowen last week. But yeah, towards the end, I think she was turning around, and over here, she's just being a hero.
Are you still mad at her? Did you?
I'll talk about that later. I'm switching teams, I think. Anyway.
Oh, okay. All right, so then we're going over to Ty, and he's kind of sneaking around the Red Hawks, and they look like they're getting ready for the Mardi Gras parade. So they either know he's there, or he's sneaking around because the last time we saw Ty, he was running from the police who were all outside his door and announcing to the neighborhood of why he was being arrested. But he's there looking for his cloak, and all of a sudden Otis shows up, and he's like, hey, are you looking for this? And we have an awesome father-son moment that broke my heart because, Dad gives him the cloak, and he's kind of, he's like, Mom called me and told me that the police are after you, that you're a cop killer. And Ty's like, I'm not. And Otis has this look on his face like I know, obviously I know you're not, but I knew in the back of my mind that one day this was going to happen. Like, he's been holding this since Ty was 8, that, like, Ty was the witness to this cover-up, and that one day something was going to happen to him. And that mirrors that conversation that Adina and Ty had on the previous episode. No matter how good Ty was, no matter how protected he was, something could still happen to him. And I think that Otis was the realist in that, in thinking, here's that moment that's coming. And it's kind of like, what do I say to my son in this moment? So he kind of just gives him the cloak and is like, leave town, don't call us, don't tell us where you are, don't send us a postcard, like, basically just run. So what did you think of that scene?
See, that I don't know, because for one thing, it's kind of weird that Ty would show up at the I don't know if it's like the Red Hawks headquarters to look for the cloak because he knows he left it at the house.
Right.
Like I don't know, it's just weird. I don't know if he was looking for the cloak or looking for like another cloak
Yeah.
or. But why would you think that your dad would bring it there? Of all places, I think. So that was kind of weird for me. Um, and I mean, Miles was really good here. His performance here. I mean, acting as Otis, and it's weird because I talked to someone else about this because Adina was like this last week, towards the end of last week when the police came. She was like, "You get out of here." She was telling her son, right? Like just right away, she's like, "Get out of here! Don't even think about it." And Otis is doing the same thing here, and you have to think about like, is that really what you want to say to your kid? But at the same time, this is a very um, I don't know, maybe not fragile, but this family has obviously has issues with the police,
Yeah.
and even though they're better off, I guess, in society or financially or whatever, those wounds, of course, they remain, and that's how they're acting here. I think I don't know if every parent would just tell their son to run, don't look back, as opposed to like turn yourself in and whatever. This will all work out, but it makes sense with the parents, I think. So
Yeah.
so I think that worked out pretty well for the parents. They acquitted themselves decently enough here.
Yeah, I think that given the situation and the history of things, they knew they had no other choice. And we saw later that they were right. That
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
that's
going
important.
to
Yeah,
be, yeah. So what else were they supposed to do? The only thing that they could do to protect their kid was to tell him to run and really don't tell me where you're going, so I'm not a liability to you wherever you're going.
yeah,
So that was a really sad scene for me, and I think, Ty was really taking that in. Like, I think he was taking in his parents' reaction, but he also, he has this look on his face of like, I'm not going to listen to that anyway. There's no way I'm leaving. He wants justice for his city. So he's not. We know that he's not just going to run away, because that is what the conclusion he came to
yes,
with his mom. So I think at that point he was kind of like, he knew what he wanted to do. He definitely wasn't going to run away, but he didn't know exactly what he was going to do. But he needed to have the cloak, whatever that meant, because in his head he's still, I need to have this specific cloak to make my powers work.
yeah,
So he got the cloak, and then he's gone. So, the police show up looking for him, and the police were just everywhere in the right spots in this episode.
yeah.
But they showed up at the Red Hawks, and they were kind of trying to stall, them a little bit. And Otis was like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna sneak you out the back." And Ty's like, "Nah, I got this." And he was gone. So, moving on, we go to Tandy, and in the previous scene with her mom, she had tried to call Mina and got her voicemail. So now we see her, and she's going to Mina's because she knows something's wrong. She knows something's wrong because, Water Girl had tried to kill her mom. What are they going to do to the Hesses? They're still, again, like Ty, he's the leftover liability of having seen something. Mina and her dad are the leftover liability with Roxanne having seen something. So Tandy knows that they're in trouble. And when she gets to Mina's place, she sees Mina is in trouble, but for a reason she did not expect. The terrors are after her. And we did see in the last episode that the pipes were starting to burst under pressure, and that everybody was being made into terrors. So, Mina's hiding in her house, and Tandy finds her, and she kind of tells her, this is what happened 8 years ago. This is what your dad said happened. And she explains that the gas or whatever that is that's released from the pipes is giving everybody like a super adrenaline rush. And I kind of like the way that she explained that, as opposed to being like, I don't know, like as opposed to being a mindless zombie. It does explain more of like why people are going into this instant rage.
Oh, like the adrenaline thing, right?
Yeah, so it's more like they're like super angry, but they still have kind of a mind about them.
Right. Yeah, they definitely have a mind about them because, I mean, shout out to Dan the Terror. He was there with Mina last week, towards the end of last week, and she started running, and it was nighttime.
Yeah.
So some time has passed, and she's definitely, she ran all the way home,
Yeah.
and it's the same. And Dan just followed her all the way, and so maybe he's not as crazy as we think, like not as mindless. He he's got a purpose in his life. So I don't know. So we're calling them terrors. So we assume that it's the same kind of creature that was in Ivan Hess's mind in
Right.
episode 7, right?
Right.
That's the weird thing. We're assuming that. We don't know if that's the right thing because in episode 7, I believe, like Ivan said that they were like infused with fear. Remember?
Yeah.
And even then, like my thought back then was like, if I was infused by fear, I wouldn't be angry. Well, I guess people would react differently, but I wouldn't be angry. I'd be
running
afraid.
away.
I'd be like
Yeah.
running the other way.
Right.
So my theory is, and this goes against completely goes against what the show is saying. So is that they get a mix of hope and fear because we get when they get hit by the gas, it's a mix of you see light and dark.
Yeah.
So when you get hope and fear, anyway, supposedly it's all the same thing according to Auntie Chantel. When you get a mix of hope and fear, I think that just screws everything up. So I can see how that could be. You could turn that into like an adrenaline rush, like just everything goes haywire, as opposed to just being afraid. Your emotions are just all out of whack. So that's how I think of when I think about the terrors.
And I think I like the name Terror still because, that explanation makes so much more sense than them just being afraid. But I think that the name is applicable as well because when they're coming after you, that's what you're filled with. You're filled with terror from them as somebody coming after you trying to kill you. So the name still applies, but I do like that thought that they're not just overcome with fear and they're just blindly attacking because they're afraid. Because you're right, that does not explain their reaction completely. But having that mixture within them, it's just going to cause them to go completely haywire. It's going to cause their adrenaline levels to go up to 1,000,000. I don't know how long somebody can sustain with their adrenaline levels so high, but anyway, we won't dive too deeply into that. I'm sure we'll see the terrors again in season 2. Well, maybe not, because we already know we're going to have some new plot in season 2. So Tandy gets rid of the terrors who are attacking Mina, and she tells her that history, and she basically tells her that Peter Scarborough, used her to, as a way to find this substance again. He wants to still drill for it, and Mina has this look on her face like, oh my god, like this is all my fault. And I felt so bad for her in that moment because I can't imagine being tricked so deeply by a company that, this was her design, everything was hers, she was so proud of it, and then to know that, like, okay, you're going to be responsible for a whole bunch of issues, including people's deaths. So that was a sad moment with Mina, and Tandy kind of tells her, like, we don't really have time for this at this moment. We have to figure out how to shut the system down before more of it explodes. And, Tandy's showing her, or actually Mina's showing her that there's 9 other valves around the city that could potentially explode. And you see on Mina's screen that it's already starting to happen. Those pressure warnings are already going off. So we know that, they're not going to be able to stop it completely. Stuff is going to happen. Yeah.
And quickly, how do you feel about seeing Mina in this episode? Like, do you feel like she's still going through the effects of what Tandy put her through, or has she recovered? I mean, when Tandy stole her hopes from episode 9.
I mean, so the last time we saw Mina, she was working, so she was like knew that there was a problem with one of the valves, and she had to go check it out. And then she immediately got thrown into the situation where she was running for her life. So I think that I don't think she was still feeling the effects, but I don't know what the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what the
I
time
agree.
lapse was either, you know? Like, how long was it since... How long will that take effect on somebody? You know,
Right,
the
because
last couple hours?
I was paying attention to it because Joe Pokaski said that Pokaski himself said that the effects wouldn't be permanent,
Mm-hmm.
and I know a lot of people were like worried that like being like having Tandy steal your hopes would like permanently scar the character or affect the character,
Oh,
and I
yeah,
was
that's a
like,
good thought.
yeah, I was like, okay, so I mean, just looking at Mina here for the moment, she seems mostly back to normal. I mean, just the way she was acting, she didn't seem paralyzed or sad or anything like that.
Yeah, she seemed
Um,
able to focus on the extreme problem in front of them, so...
yeah. Oh, and just quickly, when we on the last line for the scene when Tandy says we need to go to Roxxon, I really like the song that they put in. I don't know, it's not even like a big thing, but the 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 way it sounds, the instrumental, it sounds a little bit like the Mission Impossible theme song. And maybe you'll pick it up when you listen
Yeah,
to
I
it
need to
again.
watch it again.
Yeah, because it was like we need to get to Roxanne, and it's like dun 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 dun. And I was like, oh, that's cool. A little
Nice little
thing there.
nod in there. Okay, I will. I
Yeah.
missed that. I'll have to watch that again. I'll definitely pay attention to that. So we know that Tandy and Mina are now on their mission to shut off the valves, and they have to figure out, how to do this. And Mina does say, we have to go to Roxxon. We have to figure this out. Tandy's like, okay, great. Of course we have to go there. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Then we're back in with Ty, and he is wandering around Mardi Gras parade wearing his cloak and fitting in, obviously, because it's Mardi Gras. So nice timing for that. But the cops are still looking for him, and I don't know, they must have a lot of cops.
Dude,
To be
that
able to
one
find
cop,
him, right? And like to be able
she
to
was on
like, right, to pick him out of a crowd like that.
it.
And he's wearing
From a
the hood over
distance.
his face. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
like, there he is. I'm like, damn. And you know why? Because they had that amazing sketch artist. They just already know what he looks like.
Yeah.
So they find him, and like obviously he knows he's in trouble, so he keeps trying to disappear. And we're like, okay, well, he's gonna get out of this because he's just gonna use his power. Then the cops are coming closer, and all of a sudden O'Reilly shows up. Also was not expecting that. I don't know where I thought she was, but she came for him, and Ty's like, thank God. So then he's gonna go get in her car,
Right.
and all of a sudden, like 20 cops surround the car. With
Again.
Mardi Gras, by the way, being like super tame in the background, which was kind of making me laugh because I'm like, this is like the biggest party
Right.
in the country, and they're so tame like that these cops can focus on Ty in this moment. But so he's getting in the car, and O'Reilly's like, do your thing, and Ty's kind of looking around like, there's a whole bunch of people here staring at me. There's no way I can just disappear in front of these people. And then I kind of put myself in his shoes, and I was like, would I do that in that moment? I don't know what I would have done. Like, if I have this like cool superpower that's supposed to be a secret, would I use it in front of a whole, like, would I jeopardize people knowing that I can do this for my safety? Because obviously he was in a bad situation.
Right. Knowing Ty, I think it's consistent with his character.
Absolutely.
Like the way you just said it right now. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, if it was me, I'd be gone.
Yeah.
I'd be like, bye.
Bye, people. I can do this really cool thing. And you could like chalk it up to like Mardi Gras magic or whatever. Like that. I don't know. I had like this whole thought process in my head of why Ty could have gotten away at that point. But you're right.
Part of the show.
Yeah, it's totally consistent with his character. So
yeah.
And of course they had to put Ty and O'Reilly together. So it was definitely part of the plot. So the cops grab him, they take his cloak that he worked really hard to get, and they arrest him. And they end up arresting O'Reilly too, which we don't see until the next scene. But then we jump ahead, and we're in another history lesson with Auntie. So I like Auntie's history. I would definitely take her history class while I'm out of town. But she's talking about the Wilson brothers, and we've seen this pairing before, alluded to, of how there's these brothers, and they got in this feud, and they were having like this duel, and then all of a sudden this huge storm was blowing up, and she kind of explains that, and this is where you see one of the brothers has an armband, and she kind of like mentioned the armband, And that brother with the armband decided at the last moment that this duel was not worth it, and he was going to sacrifice himself so that this could end. And his sacrifice saved the city from this huge giant storm. And then, so, that's when we're really introduced to whoever has the mark on their arm, or whoever has something on their arm is going to be the one of the pairing who's going to die.
Yes. And that comes in throughout the episode.
Yes, it does. And it just had me, really worried throughout the episode. And then you're looking at Ty and Tandy, and they're both wearing, long-sleeve sweatshirts, and you're like, damn, okay.
Just kept looking at their arms the whole time.
Yeah, gonna have to wait for that, fine. And in this scene as well, we have Evita, and she's telling Auntie that, the pair is together. Ty has Tandy, and she's kind of making fun of Tandy, I don't know what this girl is going to do to save the city, but whatever, she was chosen for whatever reason. And Auntie's like, well, they're together, that's what they need to do, they figure it out, that's just how it works.
Yeah, this is when she Evita says she's not so divine, something like that?
Yeah.
Talking about Tandy. I like that little bit of sass, and even though there's some big important thing, she's still not so divine. And then she's like, she says something else, something like Tyrone's friend. She said, the way she says friend, there's a little bit of hesitation. I'm like, yep, you get your little hits in there, girl.
Right. I love Evita. She's amazing.
The best.
So then we move on, and we kind of get our scenes spliced together now. We see O'Reilly and Ty were arrested, and they're brought into the police station. And then we also have that Mina and Tandy are in the car, and they're driving to Roxxon. And we're hearing on the radio something about the Garden District has a problem. And you can tell at that moment they're talking about the terrors, and I didn't go back into the episode to look, but I think that first valve that was giving that pressure warning on Mina's screen when Tandy and Mina were looking at it was in that district. So that's kind of showing that everything's spreading.
Starting. You're right.
So Mina's kind of saying, she's kind of down, she's saying things like, destiny doesn't exist, and there was a great line, and I didn't write it down, but Joe Pokaski tweeted it out again, and it was when Mina said destiny doesn't exist, and Tandy said something along the lines of, yes it does, it's just string theory that we don't understand yet. And I love that. That's the greatest. Joe Pokaski tweeted out that he's just going to use that line
I know,
creative situation. I'm like, that's perfect, I love it.
Same thing.
So, we have another great scene of Tandy, trying to convince someone that everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, oh, she's come so far.
I know, yeah.
So, look back at her in, the first 3 episodes and, where she was a mess. And look at her now. She's convincing Mina that everything that she did it's going to be okay. They're going to fix it. This is just how it was supposed to go. Yeah.
In episode 9, Tandy was kind of just like a blip, like a bump in the road, and we're back on her character arc.
Yeah, we got her back. The threat of her mom dying, I think, really kind of brought her out of that funk that she was in, the regression funk, and now she knows that she can actually do something to help. So, interesting that they used her mom in that way to kind of help her overcome the regression.
Right.
On the other side of things, we have O'Reilly and Ty, and this was such a good scene. Aubrey Joseph was fantastic in this scene.
Yes.
They're kind of brought to a back room, and Ty's like, what's going on? And, O'Reilly's explaining to him that they haven't been booked, and they're not officially held because they were not booked. So that means that this is not good, what's going on. It means that they're being held for Connors, basically.
Something is afoot.
Yes, and, she's trying to tell Ty, hey, just use your powers and get out of here, and he's telling her he can't do it without the cloak, and he really still, feels that he cannot use his powers without that cloak. So then O'Reilly tries to talk to the cop who's kind of guarding their little holding area, and she's trying to say stuff to him to kind of get him riled up, but then to try to get an emotional plea. And he says to her, you don't get it because you're not from here. And then Ty's like,
Right.
don't worry, I got this. And Ty takes
Yeah.
over and is like, I am from here. You're supposed to protect me. My parents are tax-paying citizens. I am not a criminal, and you are not doing your job. And I don't remember what he said. Did he say, help me out with the numbers? He said if you were really, was it 505? Or
504, I
504.
think.
So
Yeah.
he's like, if you were really from here, you would understand that we have a bond. And it was just a really, really good scene because he kept that cool calmness that we expect from Ty in these situations. So he really, like, when he's speaking to somebody, he's not going to get, like, if you think of Tandy, she's going to get angry and she's going to say things that are hurtful because that's when she's yelling at Ty. But Ty just keeps this even keel, cool, calm collectiveness. He says things like, give me a reason to be just. We need, this is a reason to be just. You have a power and you have to understand the power you have. And he just is so, like, good at saying the right thing in the right way in this scene. And I think Aubrey did such a fantastic job with this scene and being convincing. He wasn't just whining like, I'm being held. It was really well spoken.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we're getting examples of how, I mean, Ty himself said it. He knows fear.
Mm-hmm.
He knows, and we mentioned this last week. Like, these two kids, both of these kids are good at. I want to be careful at saying how I say this. They understand emotion and they know how to use that. And not saying like Ty is being manipulative or anything, because he's coming from and Aubrey's performance of this strengthens that because it comes from such a genuine place, like an honest place. So he's not like manipulating anything, but it works. Like with Dandy, it's so obvious, but you forget, like, oh wait, no, Ty can do work. He's got skills. He can make appeals to these people, and this is like a cop, and I think it's Lafayette was his name, and he was about to was he about to like release them or something?
He was about to let them out, yeah.
Yeah, so it really worked.
It did, and again, it's because Ty, like, you're right, like, they understand the emotional situation, so he knew that he couldn't lose it in that moment. He couldn't, like, O'Reilly was starting to go to be, like, too heavy-handed, and Ty really knew, he's like, I got this, I'm going to talk to this guy, I'm going to handle this. And he was about to let him out. I don't know what he was going to do with him then, like this guy was going to stand up to Connors with him. But he was about to let him out, and then another cop opened the door and was gonna, is just like, don't worry, I got these guys, I'm
damn it,
them for you. Yeah.
I thought he was going to start with the same speech.
Yeah.
Like, I have to do the whole thing all over again.
Yeah. But one of our awesome listeners on Twitter, and I apologize, I should have looked up their name before we started doing this podcast, but if I have a minute, I will look it up and give props and kudos to you at the end. But, was commenting about how, we kind of should give more credit to Aubrey Joseph as an actor, and I totally agree. And I just think that Tandy's scenes are just so emotion-filled that we kind of get, like, we get, Olivia is amazing, and we kind of get like that on the show, but definitely, props to Ty for sure. Props to Aubrey Joseph. He plays Ty beautifully, and he's the perfect contrast to, the bubbliness. Absolutely. And the I don't even know how to explain it, but like basically like the everything that is Tandy. So definitely in this scene, this was awesome. So we get, we think they're going to get let out, and then that cop comes in and takes over, and they're not let out. And O'Reilly's kind of like, damn.
Bummer.
Yes. So then we go to a scene with Peter Scarborough, and he's destroying evidence. So he's like pulling hard drives out of computers and smashing them and tearing paper up. And I'm like, I thought that was fun to film.
He was a drill, man. He went like medieval on that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want any of this tied to me. So then, of course, Tandy and Mina show up. So that was kind of a cool scene where Peter was going to the elevator, and then the doors open, and Tandy and Mina are standing inside, like, all badass, like they knew he was going to be there. that was a good scene. But he gets in the elevator with them anyway. He's kind of like, whatever, like, I guess I'll talk to these girls. And,
Yeah.
you know, Tandy's asking him, you know, why is he doing this? What's so important? And this was another one of my favorite scenes, and I can't believe Peter Scarborough had it, but he says to Tandy, with great power comes, and then, of course, all of us in our head, like, finish the line, and then he goes, even more power, and you're like, damn, okay, Peter Scarborough.
The bad dude.
Right.
Bad dude.
So with great power comes even more power. Okay. That got me. And then, like, in the same scene, he's, like, telling Tandy that you have to keep up with the Joneses or the Starks and the Rands. And I was like, he really went there, too. Okay.
Yep.
So
the internet exploded.
Got that all, all of the MCU in there with Peter Scarborough. Okay. That was a good scene. I really liked it. But he's still kind of cocky in this scene. He's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to get away with it because I always do. And, he's kind of looking at Tandy like, like, why are you here? You sold yourself out already for all this money. So, like, what do I care about you? But obviously he still cares about her enough to send Water Girl after her mother. So.
That's right.
So I think he was kind of like iffy on Tandy. But then he's telling them that they have to get to the Annex building, to Annex building 616 to shut off the valve. Like, okay, so like that's where the master controls are. And at that point I was like, is he lying to them or is he really telling them because maybe he has some sort of heart in there and he doesn't want everybody to die? But then Tandy touches him and we get even more power insight with both of them in this episode. So now Tandy's in Peter Scarborough's mind. Oh, and I just tied together what happened to him at the end. I don't know why I didn't pull that together before. Sorry, I'm looking a minute. So she's in his mind and she's able to talk to him. So she wasn't necessarily able to do that so well before. But he's able to speak back to her, and she's able to speak to him and have, like, normal conversation. And he's like, where are we? Yeah. And he's explaining to her. And she's like, hey, there's a door over there, and that has everything you could ever want behind it. And he's like, really? Like, he's her in this dream world. He's like, what does he say? He says, she says, do you want to be a god? And he says, I want to be God. Like, the one and only. I want to be God. So then she tells him to go into that door, and we've seen that door before.
Right.
In Ivan Hess's mind. And he obviously goes into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot going on here. First of all, I have to mention Annex 616. That's a comic book reference.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like a little bit, just a small Easter egg. Not a big deal, really, but, I don't want to lose my geek card, so I have to say that. And, yeah, there's so much to gain from this. For number one, obviously, we all know Tandy is way ahead of Ty in terms of her skill, I guess, at manipulating all her powers, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, Ty overall, I think, has more power, so that lets him keep up, but she knows how to use her skill even from last week. She was like taking hopes already.
Yeah.
So here it's interesting because she's not necessarily in Scarborough's hopes, right? He's there in like where Ivan Hess was. I don't think Tandy can create these dimensions yet. So I'm thinking, or at all. So I'm thinking. It's weird because it's like I don't want to say it's like we're getting a hint that it's a place, right?
Yeah.
It's like a different dimension, I guess, but it's a place, and it's like there's like a geographic element to it. Like Tandy went to a different part of it, or Ivan Hess's part of it, and stuck Peter Scarborough there. So, I mean, maybe like I don't know if this is the case, but that's what I'm getting out of it. So we're getting little hints of, yeah, it's not like pocket mindscapes. It's like a dimension, and which is what we've been using, or some people have been using for it, like a dark dimension. It's another place almost.
And that's what it was in the comic books, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it seems to be aligning with that.
Was Tandy ever able to go there in the comic books, or is this a show thing?
Sure, she's actually the only one who can go there and not be hurt in the comic books, not be affected by it so much, because she has so much of like her own light energy.
Okay.
So.
And maybe that's why it's so brightly filmed. Those scenes, like there's just extra white light around them, and maybe it's to get like that kind of like dream effect of like they're not in reality, but maybe it's her, the light she's giving off in that area as well.
Sure, yeah.
And I just looked up that user on Twitter who was helping us with our Thai conversation. It was at Spawn of Oz. And there's H. Kane. So thank you again for that. So Tandy kind of gets her ultimate revenge here, using her powers that basically came about because of the mess that Peter Scarborough is creating. So he kind of gets like the ultimate like punishment in the end for bringing this all about, if you think about it that way.
Yeah. I same thing. I missed it the first time, but the second time I'm like, oh, Ivan Hess them, and she can do that.
Yeah, and in the moment when I was watching it, I was like, oh, she's gonna Ivan Hess him, basically. You know, she's gonna put him into that catatonic state by putting him in the oil rig and locking him in there, basically. And then at the end of the episode, I was like so overwhelmed with everything else that had happened. And when I saw him in the elevator, I was gonna ask you later on, like, was he dead? Like, what's happening to him? But that's what happened.
Right. Yeah.
Let's put that together now. So then we go back to Ty and Bridget O'Reilly, and we see O'Reilly like broke her wrist to get out of the cuffs because she was like, now this is serious. And she's brave. But then Connors comes in, and you're like, oh my god, like I love when I see people on Twitter where they're just like, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal is so great, but like I hate him with like the fire of 1,000 suns, and it's like, yes,
seriously,
he's just so awful. But such a good actor at being so awful. I always hate like really dogging on a character, but he's got to know that he probably wouldn't even like Connors.
Yo, but wasn't he? He wasn't last in the poll we had a few weeks ago, so. Right? Am I remembering that right?
You're right. Yeah, that's another poll. I should write that down. Who do you hate the most?
So he's lovable in his own weird way, annoying way.
I mean, he's a good bad guy.
Yes, there you go. That's perfect. He's a great bad guy. Like, just his face.
Yes. Like, how does he have so much pull? Like, his uncle was chief of police, right? So, like, obviously his uncle is not chief of police anymore, but Connors obviously runs that police station. Those cops are all afraid of him. And then he has his drug ring that he runs. So, like, what else does this guy do? Crazy.
He's connected, man.
He really is.
But I never got the sense that he's, like, the big boss, though. Like, I always think that there's someone else.
I think there definitely is someone else.
Ooh.
But he, like, runs... obviously New Orleans, because everybody's just they just do whatever he says, except for O'Reilly because she's not from there, and except for Ty because Ty's going to stand for justice.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like we'll talk about him more a little bit later, but I feel like he's going to come back in season 2.
I think so too. So Connors comes in, and O'Reilly breaks her wrist, and she's talking to him, and like you just get this like dirty feeling when he's in a scene because he's just so awful. But he says to O'Reilly, doesn't he say it's mayhem, O'Reilly? And I'm like, ooh, again. Like, just in case you guys don't know now, here we're going.
Wink.
Wink, wink, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So O'Reilly is about to break free from her handcuffs, so they pull them out, and Connors is telling him, "This is how we're going to run this. Ty is going to kill you, and then we're going to have to kill him because he shot you, and then we're going to mourn you, and it's all going to be super sad." And he's just like, he's got this all planned out, like, this is annoying, but this is what we have to do now because you guys meddled too much. So they take them out of the cage that they were locked in, basically. And O'Reilly is walking, they have her in front, and her hands are in front, and she's like about to break out of her cuffs when all of a sudden a terror breaks into the police station and just shocks everyone.
Right, yeah.
So the police shoot him or tase him, one of the two, obviously, and then they're like, what the hell is happening? So then one of the cops goes and checks the guy to see if he's still alive, and that's where we see, and I don't know if it was for the first time, but for the first time that I think we remember that the terror is spread through touch.
Yes.
So that cop touched the guy to see if he was
really fast too.
Really super fast, and that power or that adrenaline rush, that energy was transferred immediately to the other cop. So then you're like, oh, this is not going to go well at the police station with all the weapons. But then things start getting super chaotic. All the cops are kind of like turning into terrors, and it's like, who's good, who's not good. I didn't see what happened to Connors in this. Did he run?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I assume he did. Like he there was like one scene where he like puts up his gun, but then doesn't do much after.
Because that's his MO. He doesn't like have to do anything. He has people do it for him.
Yeah, total coward.
Right. So I'm assuming he ran. He was probably like, well, this will take care of itself. O'Reilly and Ty are obviously going to die in this situation. I'm going to get my ass out of here.
Yeah.
But, of course, they don't. And Ty finds the cop who he had gotten on his side, the sympathetic cop. What was his name?
Lafayette. So
he gets Lafayette, and he's like, where's my cloak? And he's telling him, it was taken back to the evidence room. So Ty's like, okay, I have to go get my cloak. But that actually comes later, so I won't skip ahead that far. What we're seeing is that the terrors are spread by touch, and that scene ends with the police station is in chaos.
Yes.
Then we're taken back to Auntie, so more Auntie history. And she gets to talk about the War of 1812, which we already had a history lesson from last episode with Father Delgado.
Right.
So we knew that in the New Orleans area, they didn't really know that the war was over, so the soldiers were still fighting. So in this divine pairing, it was a little different, where we had this young private soldier, and he had to deliver this message that, hey, the war's over, everybody can stop fighting. And he's got his armband on, so you're like, well, you know what's going to happen to him. So he's able to pass along the message that the war is over to this random girl who found him on the side of the road, and she was so moved that she was able to take his message and basically stop the war. So he was the last soldier to die in a war that had already been over. So he was able to complete that sequence by passing along that message, and then the town was saved again. But that also enforced the one must live and one must die. So again, we're seeing that.
Yeah, they weren't like a pair for long.
No, like literally like maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah.
They just met each other. So we got that, and then we go back to Tandy and Mina. And they know they have to go to the annex, so they're going to the car, and then all of a sudden Water Girl shows up again. And you're like, okay, she is still alive, she's here, and she's gonna try to stop them. And then all the terrors come, and Water Girl finally meets her end with the terrors.
Right. Well, for now, we think she does.
Becomes a terror.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because they touched.
I was like,
but she was screaming.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they could have killed her off. They could. I mean, she never did. She didn't die on screen. They could bring her back later.
No, she came back later. You're
right.
For like a split second, but she was okay already at that point, so she stopped being. Yeah.
She stopped being a terror. So she was a terror. But the terror saved them in that moment, so that was nice of the terrors to allow them a chance to get away. So they're running into a building, and they know they have to get away from the terrors. And then in this scene, Mina gets touched. Were you expecting that to happen?
No, this was like straight up like horror movie stuff.
Yes. I was so
Too
sad for
bad.
her because like she's been through so much.
Yeah, and she was
But
like, this was like after she. Well, we'll see later. Like Ellie gets to do some badass things in this
yeah,
episode. Like earlier, she punched Peter Scarborough right in the face in the elevator, and now she
yeah,
gets to run around after Tandy for a bit.
yeah. So she gets turned into a terror, and it's like, well, I know that you know that it has to come down to Ty and Tandy, that Mina can't like be the third wheel, but I didn't
Yeah,
expect her to be turned into a terror, and that's how they were gonna kind of get rid of her in this
yeah, it's
moment.
sort of like write her off a little bit.
Right. So Mina got touched, and Tandy has this realization in that moment that she's looking for her and she's calling to her, and Mina's not responding, so she knows something's wrong.
Hmm.
Then we go back to the police station. There's complete chaos. Ty's looking for his cloak and in the evidence room. And, then we're kind of switching back and forth between Mina and Tandy. And we know Mina is a terror at that point. She's running around chasing Tandy through this warehouse that they're in.
Right.
Then we
Yep.
skip back to Ty, and O'Reilly gets him his cloak. So she's like, go. Everybody in this episode is telling him to run away, and Ty is consistently saying, and that's consistently
Yeah.
what he told Tandy in the first couple of episodes, don't run away. This is
Yes.
a problem, and he's like, I live here, I need to help. I'm not running away from this. So Ty then starts helping the cop, or actually O'Reilly like goes through all of the weaponry, which I thought that was a
Hmm.
cool thing. She's like, I got this. I'm gonna take care of this. So Ty grabs a taser and hands it to Lafayette and is like, here, I'm going to help you. And he kind of lures all of the terrors into a room that can be locked.
Hmm.
And this was so sad to me in this scene because he's standing, and in the previews I had no idea what was going on, so this makes sense. I thought he was at Mardi Gras, like with the cloak getting torn up, but he's actually in the police station with the terrors, and the terrors are all attacking him and pulling his cloak and ripping it.
Yeah.
And I was so sad in that moment because that's Billy's cloak, and now it's getting
Yeah.
destroyed. And I really liked the way that the cloak looked on Ty. Like, it was a cool look to have that
Right.
as
Right.
part of his cloak identity. So when I was like, man, they really are destroying it. Like, there's no way that can be saved at this point.
And it's pretty cool that it's a credit to the writing and the writers that they got that response from you and from me too. Like it's just the terrorists ripping like this piece of cloth, but it's
Right.
not just a piece of cloth. Like we know it's infused with the history of the brother
Yeah.
and the hard work, and on top of the comic book stuff, like that's the cloak, that's his costume. So on top of all of that, you get that all the emotional investment that we've had in that little
Right.
that piece of
This
fabric.
little piece of
Yeah.
fabric. And you're so right that it is just a piece of fabric, but we've come to know it as like
Yeah.
they wrote Billy into the show so well
Yeah.
that as soon as we found out that was attached to Billy, we're like, oh my god, this is the cloak. This is exactly what he needs. This is going to be his thing. And then all of a sudden, it's gone now. It's taken away from him. And
Right.
you feel that along with Ty.
It's painful, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of, and the way they shot it, it's like it's supposed to have a visceral impact on you. Like they're ripping it apart, and he's being ganged up on, and you're
Right.
like, no, no.
And he's being touched, but we're assuming that, the terror isn't affecting him because he's half of it. Like, he's already
Yeah.
got half of that inside of him already.
Yep.
Okay. So then we go back to Tandy, and she's at, like, that was such a cool scene, too. I like how they filmed it, how they were in the warehouse, and there was, like,
Yeah.
on either side of them, and Mina's at one end, and Tandy's at the other, and Tandy's holding her dagger, like, I don't want to hurt you, and Mina's getting ready, like a track star, to run at her. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, Ty appears.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Ty always appears at the place he needs to be. And, he's able in that moment to tase Mina and to stop her from attacking Tandy, so Tandy doesn't have to basically kill her only friend.
Quick reactions from Ty.
Yeah. And then, of course, Tandy with the one-liner tells him, "Took you long enough."
I like that, and just using the whole taser thing, I like that they took great pains to show or to minimize the amount of people of the terrors dying.
Yeah.
I think because these are heroes. They save people, and even earlier, like when Tandy knifes one of the first terror outside of Mina's house, they took that time to show the shot of the terror still being alive.
Yeah.
After he got stabbed. So I'm assuming maybe he'll make it, maybe he won't. And in the police precinct, when Lafayette still has his gun, he shoots one of the other police officers who's a terror running towards him. The first time I watched it, I thought he killed him, but then the second time, and I was like, "Whoa, we just killed somebody he might know."
Yeah.
But then on the second viewing, he's like, you can see that he shoots the guy in the leg. So it's like, oh, okay. So they're really showing, that it's kind of like in G.I. Joe. Remember those G.I. Joe cartoons when when the vehicles explode, you see the guy is alive and he's parachuting to safety. And the same thing here with Tyrone. It was pretty smart what he did. Like he's just always bait,
Yeah.
right? So he baits them all in, and you assume that when you lock them all in, they can't. It's a nice non-lethal way to solve the problem.
Yeah, you do assume that when they're locked in, that they're just going to be in there. They're not going to be able to get out.
Yeah.
So
hopefully.
Yeah. No, I agree. So. So then we go into the next. We'll go into Ty being sad in a second, but we go into the next anti-history lesson. And was this the last one? I think this was the last history lesson.
Right.
And I didn't understand this entire thing, but it was basically that there was a doctor and there was a plague going on, and there was a doctor and he was trying to save his lover, and he was trying to test the immunizations on himself to see if they would work, or the cure on himself to see what was going to work. And then he eventually came up with the correct formula for the immunization or the cure for the plague that was hitting the town, and he injected his lover in the last second, and then he died. So they were the divine pairing in that history. So props for representation in that scene. But he was able to save the entire town. So whatever happened, he saved one person, and then everyone else in the vicinity also was cured. They just all started shooting up, and everything was okay.
That was cool.
Yeah. So that was
This is and if you remember, this is what young Auntie was talking about. I can't remember which episode it was. Maybe 8. When after young Ty leaves the beach, he's walking around, and he runs into Auntie Chantel, giving one of her tours, and this is it. This is the story she was saying.
Transfusion thing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty cool, because even when I heard that, I did not realize that it would be one of the divine pairs. So that was pretty cool to have that callback to, I forgot the names of the characters, Bobo Smith, and I forgot the other guy, the doctor guy.
Yeah.
And pretty cool the way they did the armband thing for this one, when he had to wrap to prevent his blood flow, I guess.
Okay, so that was my other question, where was his armband? Good catch.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because he had to find his vein. So he had to do the wraparound.
Yeah, the thing. Yeah.
The thing when you're giving blood. Wow, good tie-in. I didn't get that. I was confused about that history lesson.
It's nicely done. All of it, really. All of them have been mentioned before, except for the 2 kids at the start. I think that this is the first time we see those kids mentioned.
That's true. And we didn't really get an explanation for what was going on in that one, but you're right. They were they were nicely done, and that was the last history lesson that we get from Auntie. So we're these are obviously the divine pairings, and then this gets explained a little bit more as we go into the next scene. So now we have Ty and Tandy, and they're in the church, and Ty is sitting on the steps, and he's just like, the cloak is gone, and Tandy's sitting there, and she's saying Mina's gone, and that Mina was kind of Tandy's security in this episode. Like, Mina was the one with the abilities to be smart enough to know what to do. Like, Tandy was going to, as long as Mina was there, everything was going to be okay. But now Mina's gone. She's out of the picture. And with Ty, as long as he had that cloak, he was going to be able to control his powers. And now he doesn't have the cloak. It's gone. So they're kind of like at a standstill at this point. And then all of a sudden, Evita shows up.
Yeah.
And Evita kind of just walks in and is like, hey, you guys are the divine pairing, and you guys are part of like a legacy that has saved the city over and over again, and you're going to do that again, but by the way, one of you is going to die. And Tandy's kind of like, what? This scene kind of made me laugh because like Evita just like, she just threw that in there. Like, she wasn't delicate at all about it. She's like, one of you is going to die.
Right. Wait. First of all, I have a question.
Yeah.
When Evita shows up, she drops something heavy. Did you catch that?
No.
I'm not even sure if it's like a small thing. She just drops something super heavy.
It's like a bag or something that she drops.
And it's heavy. It's like clunk, and I'm like,
Yeah.
What was that? Do you have an idea what that is? Because I got nothing.
No, I'm gonna have to rewatch it again to see if it comes up later. Like, did she just leave it in church?
Maybe I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things used to cut chains, but I don't know how that makes sense. So maybe one of our listeners can clue us in.
Yeah.
What the hell that was? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that again and see if I catch that the second time, because you're right. And they showed it, so they made a point of showing it. It had to be something.
Right.
So she's telling them that they're the divine pairing, and she hands them their figures, which must have been like really odd for them. And Ty's kind of like, wasn't this the stuff that was on your mantle? And he's like, yeah. Evita's like, yeah, and here's your figures. You guys are on the mantle. And Tandy's like, what the hell is happening? And Ty remains like cool, calm Ty, like, okay, we need to, maybe this is not so crazy. Like, why do we have these powers? Why is this happening to us? Maybe this is what it is. So, he believes in Evita and not just the voodoo aspect of it, but that history of like having that pairing. And Tandy's just kind of staring at her little figure like, this is nuts. Like, her reaction was great. She's like, didn't you hear the part where we're gonna die? And Evita says, no, not both of you, just one of you. And then you see Evita looking at Ty, and Ty has the cut on his arm.
Yeah.
And then collectively, like, we're all Evita in that moment where we're kind of like, oh no.
Yeah.
You kind of knew it was going to be Ty. Like, I just felt like it was going to be Ty the whole time, right? Like, ever since we learned.
Yeah.
We learned, like, even like way back in the beginning of the season, that one of them was going to live and one of them was going to die. You felt like it was Ty, like, saving Tandy the entire series. So it kind of made sense that, like, he would be the one to, like, continue that, to be the person who does everything.
His name rhymes with die, so that's what I thought.
Terrible. So.
By the way, I first of all, I want those figurines.
Right.
Like, even the first time I saw them, I'm like, and the way they introduced them was like they were, or at least the Ty's figurine was 3D printed. I'm like,
yeah.
I hope they release the files and we can like print our own little figurines. Wouldn't that be cool? Like, I get that.
I like it. And Ty's figurine was cool. Like, it was a little detailed. Did you look at it? Like, he's got his hands like on his hips a little bit, or like in his pockets. Like, you could see.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Tandy's was kind of just like a figure because Evita carved it herself.
Yeah, she just carved it like old school.
Kind of like a human form.
Yeah, I want those. For sure.
So you're going to be searching on eBay for these figures.
Dude, yeah. what do you call this? The Vita stuff is just so heartbreaking, right? Like, 'cause
Yeah.
she's yeah, because she didn't tell them about the significance of that, or did she? Um, so at that point, she knows in her head, like her boyfriend or Ty's gonna die, and then she still says something like, she says something like, "I'll see you soon," something like that. So
Yeah.
she knows, in her, as far as she knows, it's like that's it, bye bye.
Yeah, like from the history that Auntie has been telling her, like he's going to be the one who dies because he has this mark on his arm. So you feel like, in that we're all collectively Evita in that moment where we're like, oh my god, Ty is going to be the one to die. But like, you're like, but he's not going to because I know that. So how are they going to resolve this?
Yeah,
But then they have like this cute, yeah, and they have this cute scene where Ty is telling her like, you're important to me. I don't want you. I don't want to lose you. Go be safe somewhere. And then they have a kiss, and it was kind of cute. Like, it was cute. And even Tandy says like, what we're all like, well, what I kind of think about them. She said, I don't hate you two together. That was so funny to me, like that she said that, because it was kind of like fourth dimension to me, because it's like, obviously we all want Tyrandy. We're all waiting for that to happen. But I don't hate Ty and Evita together because I like Evita.
yeah. Like I said, I'm starting to jump ship. Uh, Calm down, everyone. And even the official Cloak and Dagger Twitter was like, Tandy's on Team Evita. And,
Yeah.
and I just looking at the comments, everyone's like, no, 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 no. And uh, I'm like, yeah, even Tandy, and just coming from the comic books, putting on my nerd glasses for a bit.
Mhm.
They never got together too much in the comic books, so obviously everybody wants to ship them. The actors are great, they're cute. We see them in Disneyland,
Can they not be so cute together in real life,
dude.
though?
I know.
Like, I want to go to Disneyland, like, just to see them being cute together. Like, honestly, come on. They brought this
Seriously,
all upon themselves that everybody wants Tyrandy.
right? And they have the hashtag, and everyone's like, but and even me, I'm like, oh, I want to see them together, but really, I don't. Thinking about it now, I'm like, I don't need it. And earlier in the season, I wasn't sure about the character of Evita and her aunt, but now, especially after what Tandy did, she referenced it. She saw into her hopes, and the way she's written is so good, and the way they're written as a couple is so good. And I'm like, I'm okay with them being together for a bit.
This
I
is
don't
your
I don't
inner
mind.
comic book struggle. I'm watching it right now. This is you saying, I've been a fan of the comic books forever, and I don't want to go against the fact that they don't get together in the comic book. So I'm going to be okay with Evita because that's going to help me get through this.
True, that might be
Is
it.
your inner
Exactly.
struggle. No, but
But
I
when they
agree with
when
you.
they kiss, I won't mind. I won't mind.
Right. Like, well, can they? I mean, maybe it's different now, because, like, they haven't been able to even touch each other
Yeah,
without activating their powers, because they hadn't been able to control that yet.
the
But
crazy.
I just love that Tandy said that. I don't hate you two together. I'm like, that's exactly how I feel, and I'm just torn on couple. I mean, maybe it would be better if Tandy wasn't alone, because obviously she's alone now. She, like,
Yeah,
really ruined everything with Liam.
pretty much.
I don't know. But
And no Liam this week.
Liam
No
what?
Liam. No Liam this week.
No, we did not see Liam. And I didn't expect us to, unless they were going to do, like, a little, like, callback to him, but
Right.
yeah. So then we continue on with Evita leaves, and Ty is saying he's useless. He doesn't have a cloak. He can't control his powers without it. And, Tandy is kind of just telling him, like, get over it. You're badass. You have these really cool powers. I think Aubrey Joseph tweeted out that, like, Tandy was giving Ty, like, the NBA halftime speech of a lifetime. Like, get over yourself. You're a baller. Everybody loves you. You got all these ladies, and you're amazing. So you can do this because your powers are super cool. You can control time and space and everything.
Yeah.
Ty is just like, she tells him, you're Tyrone freaking Johnson, that was cool. So then Tandy, like this, I think this was my favorite scene because this really got me. This really got me in all my feels. She
Oh yeah.
and gives him the hoodie. So she gets
Yeah.
the hoodie and he gives it to her and he has immediate recognition of what that hoodie is. And he's like, "Where did you get this?" And she says, "I stole it from little you." And that
Aw.
like that line and she's like, "This was the first thing I stole."
Aw.
And the way
I
she
know.
said it was like she was like, "I'm so proud of like this was the very first thing I stole and I stole it from
True.
you and here it is." And he's like, like, why? And she said, I really needed it. She's like, I
Yeah.
really, really needed it, and now you need it, so have it.
Dude.
I know
Again.
that scene was so deep. Like,
Again, the writers, it's all the Billy stuff because it comes from Billy and
Yeah.
with the cloak stuff.
it was just,
But then it's all the. Sorry, go ahead.
just a hoodie. It's just
Yeah, it's just a hoodie. But when Tandy says I really need it, like obviously Ty doesn't know, but we know. We saw like she needs that thing to. It's totally her comfort blanket to
Yeah.
get past her hard life.
That's her security blanket, and she's like,
Yeah.
basically going to get her most precious possession and giving it to him because she's like,
Mhm.
I don't need this anymore. Like that was kind of like the most character progression I think that we've seen from her. That was like a culmination of everything, like where she's been to where she is now. She gave him what she used as a security blanket. She gave that to him because she knew that somebody else needed it more than her. She's like, I don't need this anymore. I'm okay with who I am as a person.
Absolutely. I was actually wondering. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Like, why hadn't she given it back before this?
Yeah.
Because they've been friends for a few episodes,
Yeah.
and this is a good moment to do it. And I was like thinking, what if he just whips out the little ballet shoe?
I know, right?
He's
Like,
"Here you
oh,
go.
hold on. I carry this around with me.
You really need this. She's like, no, I don't.
No, I don't fit in that more things. But I love, like, my favorite detail about that hoodie, besides the fact that it was Billy's, is how she stitched it with the white thread, so that, like, just like when you're looking at somebody wearing the hood up, you can see that little bit of white in it. That's my favorite
Yeah.
thing about that thing.
So
Oh, and then she says my other favorite line from Tandy in this scene. She says, you need it, but then she says to Ty, and I need you. And you're like, ugh. That got all of my Ty Randy feels. So, like,
yep.
the whole scene
Yep.
got me. Like, I was like, how am I supposed to, I think I tweeted out, like, how am I supposed to watch the rest of the episode? There was still, like, 15 minutes. Like, I don't even know how to move on from this. I need a break.
Good stuff.
Yes, such good stuff. So we do have to move on, and then we go to the terrors are attacking, and they're trying to get to the annex, and they kind of have a cool fight scene together.
Yeah. Yeah.
More of that, more of like Tandy's amazing aim. I love how she throws
Mhm.
triggers. And
Right.
Ty can control his powers with the hoodie, so that's awesome. He's got that. And then we see O'Reilly on the roof with a sniper rifle trying to help them out. Like,
Yeah.
many talents. She's also a sniper, if anybody didn't know that.
Right. And I like that. I like to be reminded that she's a badass because she's been taking some losses for the past few episodes, and you're like,
But
okay,
last episode, yeah.
she's a badass.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then O'Reilly she has a police vehicle and it has all that weaponry in it, and then all of a sudden Connors shows up and he's got like this huge double barrel shotgun, and she's basically like shit, and he shoots her, but we had seen that she had put all of this like bulletproof vesting on, so we're like, okay, she got shot,
Yeah.
probably hurt, but she's not going to die from that because she's got the vest on.
Right.
But he does end up shooting her enough to fall back, and she falls into the rig. And correct me if I'm wrong in what I saw in this, but then he shoots again, and he accidentally shoots where the valve is. He shoots the rig that's right next to her, and then that energy comes out.
Yes. So I'm not. First of all, I like the way they shot that because right away when you see her, the vehicle's lights are on the tubes, so right away you're like, oh, something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I think she was like holding on to it, and then like he shot her with such force that she turned it, and the stuff came out, the gas.
Okay, is that what happened?
I think so. Yeah.
But
Maybe.
it went into her. So
Yeah.
it did not go into Connors, it went into her. And then she was
Yes.
passed out. And Connors basically just went up to her and kicked her into the water.
Right.
And basically saying something along the lines of like, you know, I'll never see you again, bitch, or something like that. Or like, have fun in the water. He says something terrible to her. And you're like, oh, like, this guy... What did he just do to her? And you know it's not the last time you're going to see her.
Right.
But then you're left with, okay, he kicked her in the water, but we know that terror went into her, so what's going to happen? So we're kind of left with that.
Yeah. Kind of cheering for that.
Yeah, for like her to like immediately jump out of the water and attack him, but that's not what happens.
You're right.
And I'm okay. I'm okay with the way that this has ended up going, but in that scene, we jump into Auntie, and she's praying over the figures, and she's praying in French?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So...
Oui. That's all I got. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all I've got too. So she's praying over the figures, and, you know, that's all she can do in that instance. Like, Auntie knows everything, but there's nothing that she can really do about it. It's definitely up to Ty and Tandy to like take care of what's going to happen in the city. And that's the scene where we start hearing "Come Sail Away," and that's Olivia singing, which was awesome. Like I didn't know she had such a good voice. I didn't know she was.
Yeah, both of them have like. There's a lot of musical talent in the show. So I think this is the scene where like they're running away in slow motion, was it?
Yeah. And
right.
They're pointing out again that Ty's arm is hurt. Like he's saying, "Ooh, my arm is stinging." And you're like, "Stop."
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
Yeah. I remember they from the little bits of this that they showed before, even in the previews, I was also wondering like, why is he running away like he's hurt, like he's cold or something?
Yeah.
But now we know finally, and I actually this is my not a nitpick because I don't see it as a bad thing, but like a few weeks ago, Joe Pokaski said that he wished they had a bigger budget for and that he didn't get something that he wanted for episode 10 specifically. So the whole episode, I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I think this is it because they made a big deal of the nine valves, and then they made a big deal of like Tandy had the map, and when they were in the church, she was like they were like playing out play calling like here's the she said like the CBD, and we have to get past it. This is the route past the Mardi Gras parade, blah blah blah, to get to the annex.
Yeah.
And so you have like they have the quest. They have to get from here to here, and it ends up being just one kind of short little fight scene.
Yeah.
And O'Reilly like bails them out, and then right after this, they're just running. They're looking behind them, but nobody's chasing them. So I feel like there was stuff that was planned, but they had to cut that out. Like if I had to put money on it, this is where they kind of had to cut some stuff out, because that's definitely a good way to make a bit of traveling seem a little bit longer. You make it like a montage. You slap on some music.
Yeah.
You film it in slow motion, and suddenly it's an epic journey.
No, you're right. You're right.
So I think that's where they might have had to cut corners, and maybe the climax, but we'll get into that.
And maybe they had to even cut it just because of time. Like they only had an hour for this episode, so they had to fit everything in. And probably when they were filming it, they weren't necessarily sure if they were going to have a season 2, so they knew they had to wrap this up to the point where it would be okay if it was just a series that was one season.
Yeah.
Had to get a lot of stuff into this episode in just an hour.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. So at this point, Ty and Tandy are at the annex, And then, of course, Connor shows up. This was another one of my favorite scenes. So maybe I like this episode more than I thought. If I go back and like look over the smaller parts of it, I knew that would happen. So Connor shows up, and such a cool scene. Like the way they worked together in this scene, like in the beginning of it. Okay, so like he's like, "I got you guys," and then he was kind of like saying shit to Tandy, and Tandy was like, "I got this, don't worry." So Ty disappears and distracts Connors or like grabs him from shooting. But what my favorite part was Tandy with her dagger like cut the shotgun in half. Like, okay.
In half. Connor's face too. He's like holding the pieces.
What the hell was that?
I love that.
We knew that her daggers could cut steel. We had known that from like episode 7 or 8. And
nasty.
Seeing her cut that shit, like, oh, did you want a sawed-off shotgun? Because now you have one. That was so cool.
Easy for them too. Like they gave each other like a look, and boom, bam, bam.
Like, the way they worked together, like you're right. They didn't need to plan. They didn't need to talk about it. They knew what they were gonna do, and they were able to work together. So that was really cool. So then Ty has Connors, and Ty's like, I am not gonna let you run my life anymore. So he's like really taking control of the situation, and Connors is kind of like, you know, you fooled me before. I'm not gonna let this happen again. And then Connors wasn't actually afraid, I don't think, until Ty grabbed him and brought him to the roof and was like kind of holding him over the edge. And then Connors was like, oh, this guy could actually kill me. Like, I think he thought before that he was just like this disappearing trick that Ty really couldn't do anything, but now he's starting to see, and I think Ty is starting to see too, in this same moment, that he's more than just somebody who can like lead people into a trap and disappear.
True.
You know,
he's not just living bait.
Right, exactly. So, you know, he's holding Connors off the roof and he's telling them that you should be really afraid of me, and like really standing up for himself and really being like ballsy about it. Like, I am me. I am not the shadow of my brother. I am, you know, I'm not just some kid that you can push around. I'm Tyrone Johnson and I've got this situation and you're going to do what I say. So he lets him go. Not off the roof to kill him, but he lets go of him. And then I was kind of confused about what was going to happen until what happened, and I was like, oh my god, that was so cool. So Ty, you know...
Wait, hold on. Before we get into that, because there's a lot to talk about there. First of all, Ty gets a power upgrade, a little bit of power upgrade, because this is the first time I think that he grabs someone and teleports with them.
True.
So that's going to be important going forward, because he's probably going to have to bring Tandy along a lot.
Yeah.
Moving forward. And the thing is, okay, so coming back to our little conversation with our listener at Spawn of Oz, we mentioned that we see a lot of Tandy's range, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right word, but throughout the season, we see a lot of, not Tandy, of Olivia's ability to hit different notes. Mm-hmm. Is how I want to say it. Because she's a con man. She's a con person. She does, you know, she has to play different roles.
Yeah.
And Ty, the character of Ty, is always, a high school kid.
Yeah, he's like a slow burn.
Yes, and his character, for the most part, and I don't want to say this is going to come across bad, but it's kind of one note, but he plays it perfectly. Like, his acting is so good, but
real subtle nuances and facial expressions and calmness that he brings to the character.
Right, and the reason I'm bringing it up is, like you said, on this scene when he has Connors on the roof, he's playing a different note. He's a little bit scary, right? He's a little bit kind of cocky, and I love seeing that because it's like, okay, Aubrey. We all know Aubrey's a great actor. He can do different types of types of emotions, I guess, with different characters, or bring out different sides of Ty. And the way it's structured, this is one of the few times, or the first times, that we see that side of him. So
yeah.
Tandy was a little bit scary in episode 9. Tyrone is, a lot of bit scary in this scene. So it's cool to see that.
No, that's a really good way of putting it. So, like, if you think of Tandy's character, she's kind of like, if you would think about it in, like, a graph sense, like, her graph would be, like, up and down, up and down, up and down, like, spikes of, like, the extremes. But Ty is more like maybe just kind of like little rolling waves, and then he's going up in this episode. Like, he's like, I know who I am. This is what I'm gonna do, and you're gonna listen to me.
Right. So that was cool, and very important. He doesn't kill Connors. I think he was thinking about it, but he's still he's a real hero.
He's a good guy. He's not gonna just get the revenge and in a vigilante sense. You're right. He's a real hero, and Aubrey Joseph and JD Evermore were so awesome in this scene. Like, it must have been cool to act this, especially with all like the CGI that they had to put into this. So, did Connors have a gun? Did he have another gun, or did he have? Okay.
He had a gun, I think.
He had another weapon. I'll leave it at that because I can't. Yeah, I think it was a gun.
Right.
And then Ty is like, I'm not. You're not winning this. I've got you. And then all of a sudden, that dark force energy like comes out of him, and goes over to Connors and like sucks him up.
Yeah.
Now Connors is what in the dark force. I can't even remember what it's called in the comics.
I think so. Like, that's the theory. So, man, okay, Jesus.
Right. Like,
this is
how
Cloak.
cool are you? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, very important. Sorry, the Detective Connors pulls out a weapon, so it's self-defense.
Right.
And we know that Ty doesn't have full control over his powers yet. And his powers sometimes have a will of their own, so there's a little bit of instinct in there. Okay, so from the comic books, for the first few years, the way they always showed Cloak was using his power, which is to suck people into him, his cloak. Okay. Was they just draw, like, they'd make the cloak huge, and then they'd draw whoever the victims were, like, inside the darkness.
Okay.
And then later on, we start to see elements of showing how the dark force is alive in him. Like, you'd have some comic book scenes where tendrils would come out, like dark energy tendrils would come out.
Okay.
And so for me, seeing this, and this is exactly what happened, I'm like, oh shit, like, dude, that's it. That's I did not expect to see that aspect this season.
No.
Because it's still early on. He's still doing the teleport thing, which is cool. So and just seeing the shape of the cloak get bigger.
Yeah.
Instead of, because obviously when for the reality of screen, his cloak can't be like as big as it is in comic books, right? Mm-hmm. And with the CGI here, it's like, oh shit! And
yes,
this is it. This is how big it gets. It's so close to comic book cloak already. It makes me so happy. Oh. And yeah, we get Connors, we're assuming, is in the Dark Force dimension. Cloak is and Ty was like confused for a bit, like what the hell just happened,
he's
right?
Never done that before. He didn't know he could do that. It just happened.
he's like, oh my god, he's inside me.
Right. Okay.
So the theory is, if it's the same as the comic books, is and we see Tandy did it to Scarborough. Like, she sent him to the dark dimension.
You're absolutely right. I didn't think about it like that.
So it's the same. I think it's the same thing. Same thing, basically.
Just
except it's physical.
There.
Yeah, and the physical body is there. So he's not dead, as far as we know.
Yeah. So, like, Peter Scarborough's mind is gone. His mind is stuck in there, but Connors is actually stuck physically in there. Yeah.
That might be a uniquely Cloak thing.
Yes. Probably a fate worse than death, too, huh?
Oh, man. If we see him again in season 2, he's going to be different.
Yeah. And so, like, that sets it up, right? So if Connors had all this control over everybody, like so much control that he could get Ty and O'Reilly like arrested but not really arrested. What's going to happen now that he's gone?
Power vacuum.
Would have been a good time for O'Reilly to step in, but that's not what's gonna. Well, so, Ty kind of has that moment of like, whoa, what the hell did I just do? And then he's kind of like, yeah, I did that. That was cool. Like, he's gone now. I don't have to worry about him anymore for this moment. Let's come back to the problem at hand where I have to save the entire city. So he goes back down to Tandy, and, you know, Ty's telling her, like, I get it. Like, I get this now. I'm the one who has to die. And Tandy's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's saying, I have this power for a reason. I have this speed. I can get to places faster than you, and I'm the one who has to take care of this problem. And before Tandy can really even say anything to him, he says, nice knowing you, Tandy Bowen.
Oh.
And then he just...
Yeah, I know.
And she's like, what? And she tries to grab him, and he's gone.
Right.
So then Ty is in the annex. He's in the annex, right? Because then I thought... Maybe,
yeah.
Okay. So he's in the annex. He needs to shut off the pipelines. So you see this, like, massive energy, like, in the middle of everything. And it's both the swirling darkness and the light. So that's... That's where their powers are coming from. So my confusion with the powers, I thought that, and maybe we thought, that the other divine pairings, like they were going to have these powers.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not what happened. These powers are
Yes.
unique to this divine pairing, unique to this situation. This light and dark energy that's being drilled up from wherever was put into them, and they can handle it because they're a divine pairing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's how I see it. Like, we don't even know if the other pairs are really divine, or it's all just BS. I mean, could all just be BS. Like, how can this kid drowning like bring back the fish? You know,
right.
What was that? So there's like that mysticism side of it that's independent of the dark force sci-fi drilling Roxxon side of it. That's unique to this version of the pairing, the latest version.
Yeah, because I thought, like, when the little girl drowned herself, like, I was immediately reminded of Tandy drowning herself to get control of her power. So I thought maybe the little girl would come back up out of the water, like, with a light dagger or something like that. And that's not what happened. She died. So...
yeah, she stopped breathing.
Yes.
But just think about it. I don't know, because the thing with the bullet and the brothers and stopping a storm, again, doesn't make sense. I don't know about the was it the influenza case? Like, maybe there's something magical going on there, because, like you said, he died and all the others like came to life. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. So it could be something. Could be not.
So that you can relate, like, all of those divine pairings, though, like, you can tie them back. So, like, the little girl who sacrificed herself to save the village, like, we saw that in Tandy when she was drowning herself to get control of her powers. The brothers feuding, we saw Ty and Tandy feuding, and they have to, just like the brothers had to get over their feud, Ty and Tandy had to get over their feud to work together. The war, stopping the war,
right.
Relate that to maybe how they saved Ivan Hess from continuing to fight his war with the terrors. They pulled him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And the influence, or is it the influenza or whatever that the outbreak was? What can we tie that to?
I mean, it's like the terrors are like an outbreak.
Yeah, true. And you know, they have to save the terrors. They're the ones who have to save the terrors. So they have like similarities in their stories, but I do think that the power is unique to this pair.
Yeah.
Because of the situation, because they're specifically mining for this weird energy source that, you know, has not been 100% explained yet. So that was one of my questions from the very beginning, like, do the other divine pairing, this power, like, I thought that this power went along with being the divine pair.
Yeah.
Like it was handed,
Yeah.
but it was obviously not.
Yes,
tie.
we got that wrong. Because I remember, yeah, we were talking about there was always like a dagger and always like a cloak, and no,
Yeah,
there
no.
was always a dead person and a living person.
Right, and there was always something wrong with somebody's arm, and that was the person who was going to die.
Yeah.
So there's that. Um, so then at this point, ties in. So he's trying to shut off the valves, and then all of a sudden Tandy gets in there because she just cuts through everything with her daggers, and she's like, "Screw you, Ty! Why did you leave me alone?" And she like had a true Tandy entrance where she was mad.
That was cool.
And yeah, so she's like, "You can't do this without me. We have to do this together. This is what we're doing." And then she gets hit by like it's going to explode, and she gets hit by either a steam explosion or something rocks her, and she bumps into one of the valves, and she gets a cut on her arm. And you're like, "Oh my god!" Now they both have a cut on their arm.
Arm watch.
Yeah.
Update.
Right. Arm watch update. They're both hurt. So then,
and it's also important to note that I think Ty failed, right? Because he does the thing. Because I like the callback to the episode 7 when like he knows how to fix it.
Yeah.
You boop 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 the thing and then you turn the things. And I like that it hurt him. You caught that, right? Like when he grabs onto the thing, it's hot. It's super hot. Yeah. It's like and Aubrey's actor was so great in that, and you feel like again, what a freaking hero this kid is.
Yeah.
Because he has to do that 3 or 4 times. And still doesn't fix anything, and Tandy comes running in.
Yeah, so like he thought that he could save the city. He thought this was going to be like it had to be on him. He could get there faster. It had to all be on him. And then she shows up, and you know, like you said, you see that he's not doing it. They have to do it together. There's something that they need to do together in that moment.
Right.
So she, you know, they decide that, and she's like, you know, they're like, remember when we tried to touch, and there was this. You know, there was that moment that kind of gives Tandy the idea, and she's saying to Ty, hold my hand and we'll show these assholes a divine pairing. So that's another great Tandy line.
Goosebumps.
Yes. So they hold hands, and then everything starts like the light and the dark, they start like kind of like bringing that into themselves. Right?
Yeah.
So they're sucking that up. And then I got confused as to what happened. Did Ty teleport them somewhere to like the top of the dome?
Yeah, that's okay. Yep, pretty much.
Ty brought them to the top of the stadium in New Orleans, and they expelled the energy into the sky to get out of there. And that's what stopped everything. So then you made a really cool graphic for this, and it's on our Twitter. They're laying on the ground. Well, not on the ground. They're laying on top of the
roof
dome, holding hands, just like they were 8 years ago when they washed up on the beach when this all started.
Yeah. Aww.
Like such amazing imagery. That was good.
So how did you feel about the whole, I guess, climax of the episode? I wonder if that's like one of the things that you didn't like about it.
I think that, yeah. I kind of wanted it to be... I don't even know what to say, honestly, because I like how they had that, how they had to get together, they had to use their powers together. But I don't know if I like the fact that they basically just sucked everything up and then expelled it into the universe. Like, so what happens now? Is that stuff still there? Like, did they get rid of it completely? Are they not going to drill for it anymore?
Okay. Yeah. Good point.
It seems like, to me, over the culmination of the 10 episodes, that was kind of easy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Like, does that make sense? Like, okay, they just sucked up the energy and threw it into the sky, and then everybody was okay after that.
Right.
But they didn't have time to go into any more than that. And like we said before, they had to wrap this up in case they weren't going to get a season 2. They couldn't, like, bring this on more. They had to wrap this up in some fashion.
Right.
So,
okay.
I don't know. That's my thought on that.
did you like the? Okay, so like for me, when the first time I saw it, I didn't like that ending or that climax. Like exactly what you're saying. I feel like it was too easy and too quick.
Right.
Uh,
It was just
um,
over.
yeah. When they fall down, first of all, when they expel the energy, I feel like they could have held that shot for I don't know, like 10 seconds more, 5 seconds,
Okay.
because it was like ah, and then they fall down, and all is fine. Like there's no shot of like the I don't know the evil stuff dispelling. Like,
Yeah.
and then the sun is shining, and um, they don't even look tired. They don't even look
No,
hurt.
they're just like, we did it. Yay.
Yeah, and we're happy and
Right.
stuff. And again, it's all well done. I just wish that they spaced that out a little bit more. And again, maybe this is where the budget stuff comes in. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was my problem with it. And okay, so and the first time I heard the way they did it, the first time I heard the music come in, I was like, this is cheesy. And because it's like the style of music, I guess it's kind of 80s. Like you have like synth music and an electric guitar.
You didn't like that throwback to the comics? The 80s.
That's true. That's true. That's an 80s thing. But no, but again, I didn't like it at first. But man, I think I've rewatched that part maybe like 40 times by now. I just keep rewatching that, rewinding like 1 minute, rewatching the whole thing because I've gone to like love it. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts about this. Like it's kind of cool. Like a little cheese is good. I think for especially this kind of episode, you're going big. And again, I keep the fact that it reminded me again. Oh, this is like freeform. This isn't HBO or whatever. So the aesthetic is a bit different. It was just the tonally. It was again. It was so unexpected considering the tone of the first 9 episodes, and then suddenly have like this big music and. But I love the fact when they held hands and then they of course the power goes crazy and shit goes boom and they separate, but they hold on tight.
Yeah.
And they're like, straining and you hear the struggle in their voices. Like that was so cool for me. Like I love that. Like if somebody makes a little clip of that, I'm gonna rewatch that thing so much. Again, I just love that part, and they're looking into each other's eyes.
Yeah.
And we actually saw that in some trailers. Like, I can't believe they gave us the actual climax of the ending already.
Right.
But yeah, I've grown to love that kind of that really cheesy music, and just knowing that it was a song by Olivia, like a remake of a song by Olivia. It makes it so much cooler, I think.
I think that, like, I liked that part where they were able to hold hands and hold on to each other and they were able to solve that problem together because that's what they needed to do. I think my problem with it was what happened afterward, where, like I said, they would just, like, let the energy go into the universe and, like, it's gone. And then, like you said, they didn't seem affected by it in any way. Like, they were just laying on the roof, they were happy, it was over. Like, I don't know, like, obviously I don't want one of them to die, but I wanted there to be, like...
Sweat.
Like, right, like, that was hard, like, it was as hard as, like, it would have been if you were actually doing it. I don't know, like, it just was not fulfilling to me, and I'll watch it again, and I'll come back to this when we're on our hiatus episodes talking about our favorite and least favorite episodes. But I think that kind of like, and I get, you're totally right with like the cheese factor. So like every superhero, like the superhero stuff has its cheese factor built into it, right? Because there is like this level of disbelief you have to live in that like this stuff can happen. Yeah. And then you also have like a cheese factor from like comic books, because comic books have those like cheesy moments too.
How dare you? How dare you?
I didn't say that. So you kind of
Certainly 80s comic books have
yes,
that,
yes,
for
yes.
sure.
So yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely darker comic books that have like amazing storylines, but you think of like those original comics and like, you know, some of those. I'll like switch realms and go to DC, but when you think of like those Batman things where like they have like the pow and bam stuff,
Oh, yeah.
like it kind of felt to me like almost like that, like it was kind of like a cop out kind of thing, and like from all that they had done through the whole
Yeah.
series of bringing
Yeah.
that reality mixed in, I guess when I was hit like full on with the superhero side of it, I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, fine, that's how it was resolved. So,
Right. That's a
and
good way of putting it.
I guess like how else are you supposed to react? Because it is such a suspension of belief that you have to enter into to believe that they can do this. And they did such a good job of writing their powers in, but still keeping them as human as possible, so that
Yeah.
you can relate to them and have that connection to them. And
Hmm.
that after the separation, when they shot the stuff up into the sky, that was too much for me, I guess, to buy into. But on the other side of things, it had to happen. I get it. They had to end this plot somehow, and this is how they decided to do
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
it could have been
They-
like their hair wasn't even messed up or anything. Like they were just hanging on top of the dome, like totally fine, and they were cute when they smiled at each other. And like the point of it was to show
Oh, yeah.
that they were holding hands just like they were 8 years ago. But I don't know. I wanted them to look like they worked really hard at that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they went superhero, and I think I guess that's how one way of doing it is you just embrace it.
You just go for it, and that's what they
Yeah,
did.
just go for it.
Yeah.
Don't even half-ass it. And I know at least if there like some people had problems with, and obviously not a lot of people, but some people had problems with the amount of superhero stuff going on with the show. That's a common thing that I see online. Like they're expecting these big moments, and they obviously they went a totally different way with the series, which
Yeah.
I appreciate. That's why it feels like this episode, like it's almost like it stands apart from episodes one. Like you have 1 to 9, and then this is like not dessert, but like okay. So if you've been like the show being like, if you've been patient with us, here you go. Here's the
Yeah.
big super thing for people who wanted that. Like let's go big. Let's go a little bit corny, and this is the world where everything else was like gritty, and here everyone's pretty and their hair is nice and
Yeah.
stuff happens, and nobody gets really hurt, except for O'Reilly, but we'll get into that
Right.
later.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's my main beef with this episode. I liked everything leading up to it. I didn't necessarily like that part. Maybe it'll grow on me.
I love that part.
So
God.
it'll grow. I'm gonna watch it again. I promise. So they're on the dome, and just like they were 8 years ago, and then we get some extra scenes. So we get Water Girl. She comes back and she finds catatonic Peter Scarborough in the elevator. So nice poetic justice there.
Yeah, and we see her name. I think I think her name is Ashley.
What? I'm gonna write that down.
I think her name is Ashley, or maybe that's the name of the cleaning company. I'm not sure, but it's like on her thing. Ashley,
Yeah.
Ashley the assassin.
Yes. Then we get a scene with the Johnsons, and they're with Father Delgado, and the police are in their house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Yep.
Dina hears like a thump. She's sitting in their living area, and she hears a thump, and she's like, "That's my son. I know him." So she goes up the stairs, and you can see a picture is gone. And then she goes and she's looking for Ty, and she doesn't see him, but she looks through his drawers, and a mom knows when her son's clothes are gone. So she knows that he came and he took some stuff.
Yeah.
She has like this look of like he's okay on her face.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's still alive, he's okay. Wherever he's going, he's going to be okay. It's going to get resolved. So we got that nice scene to kind of end that. Then we see Tandy. I do like this part. We had a complete role reversal from the beginning of the season. So Tandy has her stuff in a box, and she's moving back home with her mom, which I thought was super touching. Like, that was so It was so cute. It was such a sweet scene between them. And she's holding up a paper, and the paper says that Roxanne is responsible for everything. So that's kind of putting that all, like, tying up those ends there. So Tandy's going to be home with her mom. Then you see Ty moving into the church. So he gathered his clothes together because he knows he can't be at home, but he goes to the church. So you have,
pretty cool.
Complete reversal where, from what we saw in the beginning of the season. And in the church, he has the picture that he took from the wall, and it's a picture of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Ty, like, pulling the cloak around him, or the hoodie around him for comfort, and you're like, oh. Like, that's what Tandy did in the cold church when she needed comfort. She used that hoodie.
Exactly. And he even looks at the, what do you call it, the stained glass, which is what Tandy did.
Yeah.
It's like, they're totally doing that on purpose.
I hope he brought his Billy box with him. Had, like, all the Billy pictures and the bullet, or he used the bullet, but I hope he brought it with, like, the ballet slipper. I hope he brought that with him.
Oh, yeah, the slipper.
Yes, and the recorder with the rap song on it. Like, I hope I really do. But then you get Tandy coming into the church, and she's bringing Ty all this food, and it was, like, that was a heartwarming scene between them. And so then you get the last lines of the season. Ty says to Tandy, I didn't know you knew how to care. And Tandy says to him, I'm learning.
Aww.
I was like, oh, like, that was nice. Everything, like, and I wonder if they hadn't got renewed for a season 2, if they would have just left that at the ending.
That's a good end. Oh, yeah, that's a good ending.
Then we got another little extra scene with O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And she's climbing out of the swampy area that she had been kicked into. And you can tell that she's not right, but she can kind of, like, teleport. So that's setting her... I don't know anything about the character from the comic books. So I know we got, like, drilled into us that O'Reilly is now Mayhem. And I know she's a character from the comic books, but I don't know anything about her.
First of all, she killed a bee.
Did she?
Did you see that? Yeah. Oh, no, it was a little bit bigger. Well, it might have not been a bee, but it was like a big insect. And I'm like, why do you have to... Like, the bees have been through enough.
Right.
And she's not even the character who's related to the bees. That's a Mina thing. I don't know why you have to do that. Like, the bee was about to land on the flower, and then, like, she kills both of the flower and the bee, I guess. So, yeah, actually, my question is, and I don't know, so I'm not sure if she can teleport, because maybe, but I don't know also if it's like a directorial thing. Like, you know how they do that sometimes for horror movies? Like, you kind of speed things up just to, I don't know if it's like, that's a real thing or just an effect.
Thing. And I didn't even know, I didn't know how to describe it. Like, I put teleport with a question mark in my notes because you're right, I don't know how to describe that. It was like a flickery thing that she did.
Yeah. Yeah, so, no, teleport is a good way to say it, because, so the character of Mayhem, she cannot do that in the comic books, but obviously they changed a lot of things, and if they do something where she's a little bit of Cloak and Dagger, because they have the way they did her origin here is she gets the same gas thing, and she falls into water. So if she has a little bit of both, maybe she'll have a little bit of that. So it's possible. Yeah. Okay, so I guess just a little bit about Mayhem, just a very little bit about her. She's kind of a feral character, and they hint at that. She has like an animalistic side to her. She has talons, and the promotional materials for season 2, you see like scratch marks, and that's even how what do you call this? How Bridget was introduced into this series. Her very first shot, she's like playing with her fingernails, and I was like,
nice one.
When I saw that, I was like, is that like? Nah, probably not. And then they mentioned it on like the Nerdist After Show. I'm like, oh shit! So I watched it again. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that. So her whole thing is, and this ties more into the drugs theme of the comic books, is she she's like living poison, I guess. Like she emits like a cloud of gas, and she uses her claws to like to make the gas like go into her victims' bloodstreams a little bit faster.
Okay.
I don't know how much they're gonna keep of that. She's not exactly a villain. She's definitely on that side if you have to pick, but she has like good intentions. She takes the law into her own hands, which is what O'Reilly couldn't do. Like O'Reilly was always like, like fight corrupt cops, but she could never get to them because of they were all connected or whatever. And the character of Mayhem was like, I don't care. I'm gonna just kill these guys, and if I mean well, but I'm taking lives, so it depends on where you fall on the spectrum on that side of things. But she's definitely gonna be a bit of an anti-hero moving forward, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think of that whole thing? Her look and all that.
I think it's really cool. I think that that flicker technique is used a lot, like you said, in horror movies to depict a ghost. So maybe
Yeah.
they were kind of showing like O'Reilly is dead, like the O'Reilly that we knew is no longer here.
Yeah.
And she's going to be transformed. So we knew from the episode 9 where Father Delgado was talking about, there's two options for heroes. They can either die or they can become villains.
Right.
And so we know that this Mayhem character is going to play a prominent role in season 2, and that it's going to be, like you said, an anti-hero and a villain role. I'm excited for it. I want to see, like, obviously I don't know anything about the comics, so to me it'll be all new. So I'll be interested to see, like, what from the comics they pull in, because I know you're really excited about it.
Yeah, the first comic book, Cloak and Dagger comic book that I ever got was where the issue where O'Reilly died. I mean, turned into Mayhem. So I've known them all for the exact amount of time, I guess. So she's one of the, and there haven't been too many Cloak and Dagger comics, so they always bring her out. So she's always there. You'll always be reminded of her whenever Cloak and Dagger around. Mayhem will be following around, and she has her own story to tell. They're free to deviate from that as far as from the comic books, no problem. It wasn't really that interesting, to be honest, but the character is interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the way Emma will play her. She's we saw the physical side of Emma, and I feel like everything else has been so perfectly cast for this show, so they obviously saw something in her that's like, okay, she'll be a good Mayhem. Looking past the first season.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Ooh, awesome. So that's it. That was the end of episode 10. I don't have any other final thoughts on it except that I'm really glad we're getting a season 2, so that we can continue to meet these characters and learn more about them, especially with Ty and Tandy's powers. Now that they're really discovering what they can do, I want to see more of their powers in season 2.
Yeah, I just like what you said. Like the way they shot it was, they obviously they didn't know if they were gonna get renewed.
Yeah.
And in the end, we got an ending. I feel like that was very satisfying. Like how other series like they give you a cliffhanger and like it's not a complete story. And for this one we get redemption for Tandy. Ty gets revenge on Connors in his own way. They save they do the super stuff. They save the city, and it's all wrapped up nicely. And then we get a little bit of a tease for season 2. Like there's more. They leave you wanting more, but at the same time, we get a really well told story of two kids who happen to have powers, and they have to deal with whatever their problems and their loss, and we go through the whole journey with them. And it was all well done, well acted, and in the end, it's just one of the better Marvel stories.
I agree.
Right?
Well,
so yeah.
I agree.
Yay!
We made it. All right.
Yes.
We are going to pause really quick for a brief word from one of our sister podcasts, and then we're going to come back with a little bit of wrap up for you guys on what we're going to do with our hiatus episode. So we'll be right back.
Hey there, Cloak and Dagger fans. Abel here, and I am from the Writer's Block. I'm here with my co-hosts, Julie and Amber.
It is a bi-weekly podcast discussing a writer's journey from story idea conception all the way through to publishing.
Get real and raw advice from actual writers and authors.
You can find our podcast everywhere podcasts are located. Now enjoy your show.
Okay, we are back. So just wanted to read a quote really quick from social media. We touched on a comment that we got from at Tabitha Vicelli, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but we already went over that Bridget is going to be, Detective O'Reilly is going to become Mayhem. So that was a comment that we got on that. Another comment that we received, and this was directed towards mainly the show and the actors in the show, from Mr. Penguin at @weirdo_J, said, "So I'm honestly breathtaken at the thought that went into this final episode. Had me excited all the way through. I love the teaser of Tyrone's real power, and especially the notion that with these powers they have, there was this naivety to them. They believed that they could change everything bad that happened to them. That in and of itself blinded them to how the world really works. I especially love Miss Noelle Renee, who played Evita, acting in that show, and how you kind of focused on the issues in the show, namely rape, corruption, stereotypes, but also the ability for people to rise past their own clouded beliefs and see the truth."
Preach.
Yes, kudos to the show, to the actors, to Aubrey, to Olivia, to Noelle Renee. You guys are terrific actors and actresses. They continue to say your performance on screen is astounding and real, and you seem to feel your characters' experiences to the bone, and that is honestly outstanding. Couldn't say it any better myself.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well said. I think that's a good way to close things out.
Yeah. So, to close things out for season 1, but Butch and I will be back. So if you guys enjoy listening to us and continue to listen to us, we won't be here every week. We will be bi-weekly with hiatus episodes. I'm going to throw out some polls to see what you guys are interested in hearing from us from hiatus episodes, but we do plan on doing some character-centric episodes to really dive deeper into the characters. And look, we've been talking for over 2 hours already on this episode. Our hiatus episodes will be a bit shorter.
Seriously.
But we do have a fun, and let me pull out the Twitter because I'm always going to forget what their podcast is called. We are doing a collaboration with the Peter Porker Power Hour podcast. So that's going to be coming up towards the end of August. So we're going to do a cool collaboration with that podcast. So we're going to be on their podcast as well. We're going to be doing kind of an overall, thoughts on the entire series so far episode. We're going to dive into what our favorite and least favorite episodes are. So if there's anything else that you guys want to hear from us on our hiatus episodes, we welcome ideas, because we're not going to be back till, the series is not going to be back till spring of 2000. So feel free to throw ideas out there to us, and we'd be happy to go down that route. We're going to see if we can try to get any guests on the show as well, so it's not just you guys listening to Butch and I talk about Cloak and Dagger for hours. But thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for all of your support and for listening to the podcast, and for your criticisms as well as your praise. That helps us get better week after week. So thank you for being here with us, and we hope that you stay with us. Any last words, Butch?
No, just thank you to everyone for following us, for liking us, for listening. I keep saying this. I do this alone. Thank you for not driving my friends insane. Because I get to talk to Kat and get to interact with everyone, and it's still just crazy that I type in hashtag Cloak and Dagger, and it's something like I was doing maybe like 3 years ago, and I get like just a few random tweets from comic book fans, and now you get like hundreds, and you can't even keep up with it, and it's so cool. And yeah, please stick with us for the hiatus. We need you guys. We're gonna get lonely because we have to talk for a few more months before we get the show back. But we'll be talking. We'll be here. So
Absolutely.
again, thank you.
And of course, shout out to our sister podcasts on our network, and shout out to the Peter Porker Power Hour podcast. That is a handful to say, guys. But that's such a good podcast. You guys got to go check it out. It's about the Marvel universe, so they do a really good job. Their Twitter handle is @PorkerHour. So check them out. And as always, thanks to the collective for your support and your retweets of our show. So they miss it.
Kat, you started a podcast with Abel on the What the Funko podcast. So if you guys want to hear more of Kat, she's co-hosting that, and I listened to the first 2 episodes. They are so short. I want more.
I know. They will be longer. We are going to do weekly episodes, going through different topics. We just kind of recorded a bunch of episodes at once, but it's basically myself and Abel, our producer, showing off our extensive pop collections. And one day I'm going to add Cloak and Dagger pops to my collection.
Yes.
It can happen. I know it.
Yeah, or 3D printed figurines at least.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. You're going to get those one day. You are. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, guys, we won't make you any longer. Yes, you will. But thank you again for your support. And as always, shout out to us on Twitter if you have any comments or questions. But we will see you guys again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Make sure you check out the show's description down below so you can follow us on social media. Talk to you next time.